This tutorial covers the basics of invoicing a work order that was dispatched from the office as opposed to the invoice being completed using ServiceFactor Mobile. Typically, if using ServiceFactor Mobile, the items used on the call will already be on the invoice and all you need to do is review the details and post it. If you are invoicing from the office, you will need to enter each item on the invoice prior to posting. Invoicing in ServiceFactor is very similar to invoicing in QuickBooks. To access the invoice screen, bring up the work order for which you want to invoice and click the Invoice tab at the top of the screen. Verify that the basic information is correct, such as the billed to customer, terms, invoice date, etc., and modify if appropriate. To add items to the invoice, enter an item name or part of the item description in the item search field and select it from the list. In this example, I will start typing regular time labor, which gives me different options to select. Select the appropriate item and enter the quantity if it is different than the defaults of 1. The system will automatically determine the rate based on any service agreement discounts that may be eligible. In this case, you will notice that the description of the item selected says regular time labor at $125 per hour, but the rate is $112.50. The reason for this is because the customer has a service agreement that includes a 10% discount, which the system will automatically take into account and calculate for you. Helpful tip. The Timesheet tab at the top of the screen will display the amount of traveling and working hours that have occurred on the work order, making it easy to determine the number of hours to charge on the invoice. The taxable slider will be set automatically based on the item selected, but can be overridden if appropriate for individual line items. The General Ledger class will also be automatically populated based on the default class of the work order, but can also be overridden per line item if necessary. If the item should be applied against a specific piece of equipment, you can select the piece of equipment from the drop-down in the Equipment column. If you worked on multiple pieces of equipment, select the appropriate piece of equipment for each item. This will track the history and revenue by each individual piece of equipment, as well as give you the option to print the equipment details on the invoice. Continue adding any additional items on the invoice until you have entered them all. The system will fill in the description of the item based on the description in the items file. However, you can modify the description that is displayed, which will appear on the invoice. Simply click on the description, or you can grab the bottom right corner and extend the field so that you can see more than a line at a time, and change the text to your liking. For example, I may want to add more detail after the description of the filter indicating that the existing filter was extremely dirty and should be replaced every 30 days. The Location column is used to define which warehouse or truck from which an inventory item will be relieved. If the item you are entering is defined as an inventory item, the system will automatically fill in the lead technician's inventory location. However, you can override this with a different location if the item came from a different truck or warehouse. If the item was purchased for the call on a purchase order, the PO number will appear in the location field. If you do not want to charge for a particular item, change the rate to 0. This will show the item on the invoice and relieve it from inventory if it is an inventory item, but not charge the customer. If you do not want an item to appear on an invoice, you can turn off the print slider and the item will not be displayed on the printed or emailed invoice. Note, if you elect to not display an item that has a sell price, the items that do print on the invoice will not add up to the total on the invoice, so be careful when using the print slider. Helpful tip. You can set up a subtotal item in the items file and use it on the invoice to subtotal all of the items above where you add it to the invoice. You can modify the description of the subtotal item to describe the repairs above, and if you do not want to print the items above the subtotal, you can change the print sliders to no, and only the subtotal description and sell price will print on the invoice. Or you can elect to use the default description and not turn the print sliders to no, and the invoice will print the items as well as the subtotal. For example, you might want to subtotal all of the labor and have a second subtotal for all of the material, etc. If you would like to rearrange the order of the items on the invoice, click the hamburger icon to the left of the item and drag it to the location you would like it to appear on the invoice. Once you have dragged it to the proper location, let go of it and the item will now appear in that location and print in the order it appears. Note, if you choose to print the equipment details, all items associated with a particular piece of equipment will be grouped under that piece of equipment in the order that they appear on the invoice. If you enter a flat rate item on the invoice, you will notice that the item is a hyperlink. Clicking on it will show you the breakdown between material and labor and will allow you to adjust the taxable flag for labor and/or material if necessary. If you need to delete an item that has been added, simply click the trash can icon on the appropriate line item and confirm that you want to delete the item. This will remove the item from the invoice. If you want to offer a discount, or if the customer has a coupon, you can use the discount field at the bottom of the screen to reflect the discount. You can offer either a total percentage discount or a flat dollar amount discount. Select the appropriate discount type from the drop-down and enter the value. In this case, I will change the discount from a percentage to a discount value and enter $25. You can change whether the discount should be before or after taxes by clicking the flip-flop icon, which will move the discount above or below the tax line and recalculate the tax if necessary. To print or email the finished invoice, click the appropriate button at the top of the screen. If you choose the print option, the system will generate a PDF and display it at the bottom of the screen, where you can open the PDF by clicking on it. When you are finished with the invoice, click the Change Status button and choose the appropriate status. The status you choose affects how the invoice amount updates your dashboard, such as for calculating whether there was missed revenue or not, as well as various reports. For information on each status, please refer to the ServiceFactor manual. Once you have selected the appropriate status, you can either save the status, or if you are complete with the invoice, you can post it to accounting. If you do not see the Post button, it means that your user does not have permission to post invoices to accounting. Once you post the invoice, the system will take you to the work order listing screen. From here, you can see any invoices that still need to be either finished or posted to accounting by clicking on the Completed tab. Note, if the Change Status button does not appear on the invoice screen, it is because there are still open dispatch records against the invoice. You will need to search for the work order on the dispatch board and complete all dispatch records associated with the invoice in order to post it. This concludes the service invoicing from the office tutorial.